One thing that is a truth, once we are born, we are bound to die. Unless the Lord comes before. This is the second coming of Christ. And that thing really makes me want to be what you're talking about the three things that you've narrowed down. You've talked about wealth, health, and bond. And I'm just seeing how I can be able to make the most of it now, so that when I'm lying there and people are talking and I can be able to experience that out of body, I will say I did something.
And this is not even an old person. I'm talking of a very young person. She passed on. And it touched me in this sense, because she really left a good mark in everyone who relate to this. This lady was called Dorcas Morerwa. Dorcas shut down a whole medical school. University of Nairobi, Chiromo, shut down to acknowledge her going. The place was packed. So much, of course, in traffic. There's no movement in, there's no movement out. Even the integrity of the room we were in was almost on a compromise because of the volumes of people. This is in the city. We're talking of a ballpark figure of maybe 3 to 5 or 6,000 people. But in terms, there's no person alive who came across her who will not attest to these words. Dorcas was a friend. Dorcas was a confidant to many. She was solid advice giver. And she kept it to herself what she needed to keep to herself.
This man was born in like 1950. And they say that in 1980, he formed a choir in that church. 1986. And I'm like, KT, what more can you do for the people of God? What more can you do in the sense that you're making people's lives beautiful? It's not what people live with you, but what they live in you. And I remember someone one day asking me, KT, people talk about you, but the only testimony that I can believe about you is 1, your spouse, 2, your children, and 3, your house manager. Because these are the people that you are with most of the time.
Kijana, let me talk to you about a few things. You guys, you look at us, you see the glam, the things we've achieved, the pomp.
Yeah.
But you don't get to know the pains we go through. It got me thinking, if I was the man inside that box, and I had a chance, if God allowed me a chance to, out of body experience to see what's happening, how that would make me feel? Would I feel achieved? Would it break me even more? The testimonies of us who are left behind. What do we learn? I put myself in that box. Like one day, when God honors and blesses me with a family, I'll try my best to make sure that the basics are covered. There's health. There's wealth. There's bond. Let me narrow it down. The health, the wealth, and bond is, I have your back. You have my back. Whatever I have, we share. Whatever you go through, I go through, and I'm not walking away. We do life until we've done life.
Welcome to the Identity Project podcast. This is where we get to have interactive conversations revolving around becoming so that we live victoriously and lead others to do the same. My name is Tindi, and I am so glad that you're here today. Maybe you're here for the first time. I just want to extend a warm welcome and thank you so much for being part of this. If you haven't subscribed, this is the time that you can just go there and hit the subscribe button so that you can get to watch more of this content. And for the regulars, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you for sharing, for commenting, because I get this from the analytics that people are sharing, people are commenting, and may the Lord continually bless you. And also, I have a WhatsApp community. You can be able to join the community. There's a link at the bottom. You can just click the link and you will be able to join this community where there's so much that we are preparing with the team that I'm working with. There is so much. So I wouldn't want you to miss this, because this is a community that we will be able to live victoriously so that we lead others to do the same. And also you can grab a copy of the Identity Project book. And this book, you can be able to get it, 1, on Amazon for the soft copy, 2, you can get it at Nuria Bookshop, or 3, you can get it through my website, and all the links are down there. You can be able to click so that you can be able to grow and walk together with us in this journey. And now I want to introduce a topic that this is not a regular topic, because it may get intense. If you are someone who has lost a loved one, you have lost maybe someone who is a distant relative, this is for you. Even if you haven't lost someone so close, this is for you, because today we want to discuss about the lessons that we can learn from the loss of someone. The lessons that we can learn from someone who was departed, because someone said that it is not only what people live with you, but what people live in you that can actually make you get to the place that you now live victoriously and lead others to do the same. And today I have a friend that is going to take us through this interactive conversation. Karibu sana.
Santi, you've made me think, rethink some thought lines with that intro, but I believe we're ready.
Yes. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Aaron. Aaron Ken is my name. I'm a friend to, we call him KT. Some of you know him as Pastor Tindi. Some of you know him as Pastor, as all those many fancy, nice names. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a brother. I'm a friend.
An actor.
And I love being human.
And Tyrese looks like you.
I mean, he wants to be me. Yeah. Beyond that, I'm a very curious person. And my curiosity, I tend to do a lot of research to manage that. Always learn, always find out new things beyond what people perceive to be who I am. You know, the problem is a lot of people identify us with what we do.
Yeah.
But I believe there's more to us than what actually we do. What we do is what brings, like for me, it brings food to the table. But that's not my identity. That's not who I am. Who I am is who makes what I do work.
Okay. Deep.
That's things that I've learned for the 40 plus years I've been alive, for things I've seen. You know, they say with age comes knowledge, and still with a lot of stupidity. But it also brings growth in one way or another. Yeah. And those are the things that form us. In fact, there's a quote I heard very many years ago, nikiwa ningali, I think in primary or something, to say the sweetest part of climbing a mountain is not reaching the top, but the process of getting to the top. Think of Mount Kenya, which is our mountain, if I'm to really bring it home.
Yeah.
If you've been to Kirinyaga, where people now, that's the route most people use if they want to go up the mountain.
Yeah.
There's a place that there's this stream that passes. It's a bit steep. It's a climb, but you can slip back and go into the river.
Yeah.
So they put these poles, fencing poles.
Like guardrails.
Yes. But local, you can just tell this is, it's the local guys who thought, let's just put this because they've seen a lot there. And there are places you'd go. The weather keeps changing as you go up. You find different species of animals, trees. And there's a lot of beauty. There's a lot that you engage in terms of mind and sight as you go up. And you go up, you're like, okay, I've achieved this. It's wow. Oh, this is what they call a snow cap or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, so now that I've reached here, what else? You need to go back down.
Yeah.
But you look forward because probably you saw something and you wonder how the view would be. When you drive from home to here, the view coming up is different from the view going back.
True.
So that's where the juicy part is. And that's how I also take life, and that's how I see my life being and what makes me me.
The process.
The process itself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. So, on to what we are about to talk about today. This thing is not an easy thing to talk about someone who has departed, but I know we are able to talk about it and execute it in a manner that God will be glorified.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, I think I should have included in my intro that I'm also a believer, for the wider viewers that you have. And we are not supposed to be ashamed
of the gospel.
Or proclaiming what we stand for, what we believe in. Suffice to say, that doesn't mean that we're not in the world. We're in the world.
Yeah, but not of it.
But none of it. And having said that, and thinking about now what you're here to discuss about the lessons we learn, or as I had mentioned to you earlier, I called it the whispers of what is left behind by the people left behind. What do we learn in the process of, as we grieve, as we mourn, as we reflect on the lives of the departed. In this sense, it doesn't really mean that it has to be they are gone or they were family, blood, or a cousin. No. So long as you are alive, at some point, you've met death by proxy. Somebody you knew, somebody you didn't know, probably an acquaintance, a friend of a friend, a neighbor, or you're just somewhere passing. For the ones who are in the city, when you're going back to the village, you're passing somewhere, then you know the way they draw on the road with white chalk to this direction. We all know the white marks means it's a funeral thing.
High possibility.
If it's a celebratory thing, chances is you'll find a banana stalk somewhere with tulikuwa tunaziita mashaino, those two.
So is that going bananas?
Hey. Yeah, guys want to really celebrate. And it reminds me of a scripture in Proverbs chapter 10 verse 7, which talks about the memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. Just recently I was having a conversation with a very close friend of mine. He might be younger by age, but I've had the privilege of doing life and walking through life with him and the family. I know the greater part of the family. We're not sharing names, but I believe he's also well known to you. And we're just sharing because the family lost their dad recently. And we had this conversation, and I was reflecting on a couple of things that prior to this, when we're discussing about today's episode, just thinking about beyond what we see happening when a casket is brought into church, or from the moment we hear so-and-so lost so-and-so, or did you know so-and-so he's no longer with us, or did you hear? Everyone always has something to say.
That is so true.
Rarely we get to say it when we are alive. Whether you're close to Mwenda Zake, or the departed, or just a random acquaintance, so long as you met that person and their face stuck on you, on your memory, whether on the streets, you still carry a memory of that person.
So true.
And sometimes it puts me at a place of, what's this? Let me call it the oral testimony that you'd hear about this person from now the crowd being us who we are attending.
Yeah.
I told you, Katie, I'm one of those guys, if I attend a funeral, chances is you'll find me sitting towards the middle going to the back or the back.
In fact, there's one we attended with you and we were at the back.
At the back.
And it turned out to be a Bible study session.
Yes.
Because of what was being shared.
Because of what was being shared. And you asked me, what's this thing with the back? And I told you, I personally like it a lot because you get to hear a lot of whispers when you're seated there. You'll see the family mourning from the front. And it's very personal. Their grief is very personal because it affects them immediately. The gaps left or the unanswered questions they might have or thoughts, and they can't bounce it off to the person who's left. But now, us who we are tending to mourn with, as we call it, you'll always hear of stories. Particularly, kifika pale kwa eulogy. And you'll hear some people going, hey, that's true about this guy. Or some will be, there's always something you'll hear in whispers. You'll always see guys talking about something. If it's something that has been mentioned that either they're agreeable to or it's questionable. And that caught my attention years ago. And I'm like, okay, this is very interesting because there's a pattern to every funeral we go to. Oh, by the way, before I forget, grieving is just not about somebody gone. It can be a tough season one's going through. You're grieving a season, maybe a broken relationship, boyfriend, maneno's girlfriend, a loss of a job, a broken marriage.
Even transition from one area to another.
Transitioning, as we call it these days, sometimes.
Because it's a loss.
Yes, it's a loss. We don't want to call it nilipoteza kazi, we say we transitioned. Those fancy diplomatic modern way of saying kaliumana. Grief comes in different forms. But for the better context of what this particular episode is all about is, for me, it's about, I'd say as a first, or if I may say as a learned friend, my first point is the stories we are left with, the testimonials of the whispers. What we get to hear from all these people who are not at the front, who are not wearing black. We wear black suits, black everything to represent we're mourning and all that. Just wonder where that came from. But anyway.
In fact, I wanted to ask a question. Anyway. But this is the best place to address it because we are talking about that.
With the color, there are stories behind it. Particularly the ones I hear, I'm not proud of them. It started from somewhere, the Miroze or Zungu, somewhere black was associated with poverty or death or anything that was bad. And that's how mourning, it turned out. All these things, including, on a sad note, even racism, because of, just the color of your skin or where you come from. And it has been associated with so many things. I remember years ago when I was just doing my tests and exams to get my driver's license. I remember the cop leading that time. He was like, do you know why our roads are black?
Is there
Nyinyi watu weusi hivyo ndio mtapotelea hapo. Kienda umeenda unakaa kwa hiyo barabara. Kwa hivyo chunga kabla ushike hii drivers nyekundu. That ka booklet. These days I see guys with a smart one of those guys who still holds that booklet of a driver's license. And it's sad that anyway, black had to be associated with that. But we don't get to pick how we see it. I still believe you can do colors and all that because memories are always colored.
Yeah. Wow, memories are always colored.
Oh, memories are always colored. Because the sensories are involved.
Yeah.
Chances is you'll remember how that person was dressed the last you saw them, the smell of the area, or if they had a perfume on, or all these things you'd remember, the feel. You know, all the sensories come alive even when you recall some of these things. Just the same way if you're broken, if you're having issues and all that, you remember all these things.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying memory is always colored.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to what we actually talking about. So for me, it's about the power of the oral testimony and the memories that are brought back by the stories we hear of these guys. It said, utajua mti kwa tunda lake. Or as they say, a tree is known by its fruits.
Yeah.
What are these fruits? These are now what we actually say when you're gone. If KT were to go today, some of us will recall so many things. Even people will be like, we never knew about his life. As we know Pastor KT.
Yeah.
They don't know the young man who grew up, who went through the pains, he went through the slums and everything, the struggles, having to be supported almost at every given point.
Yeah,
up until now.
Parents,
Yes, all that. There's a good number of people who are clueless about that.
Yeah.
For them, they'll hear it just like any other story. But when they meet people who actually walked with you that journey, it changes. Or in today's terms, it slaps different. It's like, oh, you want to tell me kumbe mjamaa si ule jamaa tu tunaonanga pale mbele ati he has everything together.
Yeah.
Akona story, kuna mali alitoka. And I think that's one of the greatest things we can take with us at this point. So back to my story. So we're talking with this friend of mine, and another friend came in we're in the office. So he came in, shared a few things. Then I just happened to pick on something he had said. So I used this friend who recently lost a dad. And I told him, it's very different when you're having a memory of a fresh person departed from how us who we walked with them that journey, we grieve. And I told him, I understand him is still grieving.
Yeah.
But I remember I had these moments with the dad where he confined a few dreams he had for his kids. He had hoped to get his kids, each kid, probably to be settled in their own house, get them each houses to start them off.
Wow.
Because all the kids have young families. That was one is to go biggest dreams, to go to biggest dreams. And he had good intentions. He's gone through so much, or he went through so much in life.
Yeah.
Both positive and negative. And as we did life with these guys, you could see the pains they were going through, but they still held it together. I remember they were talking so well. And the one common thing I had from even other relatives and friends, like this friend of mine, the parents are like the SI unit of what a relationship needs to look like. When I'm poor wako, when you're ride or die, or
prayer partner.
Yeah, I am telling you. And as I listened and I observed, and just hearing how guys were saying, this mzee, he always took us out for a tea, a random thing, and was agreeable because I knew him. This man, you'd find him even walking. That you'd want to say hi to somebody quickly as you move on.
Yeah.
Never worked with him. Like, let's sit down, let's do life, even if it's on the street.
Yeah.
And he'd share about his life or hear you out where you are and just give you a nugget of, this is what, if I was in your shoes, or this is what I went through that's similar to you. This is how I navigated. And for me, it's not about the solutions, but that impact for you'd take time to talk to all these random people. So much so that you'd hear of even people in the community, the larger community, by the time he was resting.
Yeah.
They talked about the impact, including a whole area chief. And they never knew this guy. They knew the wife because the wife does something substantial in the community. But the impact this man had, they even had to consult him for things that really didn't need to involve him at all. And these are things that affect the community at large. Bringing it closer home, a couple of years ago, that happened to a dad to a friend of mine when he passed on. This one hit me different because this man, to me, I took him more than a friend. I think after years of just knowing each other and walking and the things he shared, I took him as an extra dad that I got in life. He spoke some profound things. He used to, now, towards the last days of his life, there as a young man, you tell him, I hope one day I'd be able to buy that SUV, I'd be able to do this, this. And the guy was well-to-do. And he listened. So one day he sits me down in his kitchen, and one of the few homes that I'd actually say that had a kitchen with an island inside the... And it's like, Kijana, let me talk to you about a few things. You guys, you look at us, you see the glam, the things we've achieved, the pomp.
Yeah.
But you don't get to know the pains we go through. You see all these things, you think that that's what makes us happy. Then he disclosed something. It's like, if I was just to have 1 year of your entire life up until now, then trade everything I have, I would. So it's like, what is this guy telling me? Then he has the life, what we want, get rich or die trying, that kind of life. So I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean, Dad? I used to call him that. And he's like, let me tell you a story. In my house, in my family, as you see, what are the key things that you quickly note or you've been noting over the years? You have other kids, but they are not usually in the same space at the same time, very rarely. Said, okay, what else? There is no mom in this house. Said, well, okay, let's start from there. One, they've dreamt and wished for a complete family. Now, some of these things you see are part of the story of the divisions within the home. My kids, they share different parents, sets of parents. That's not ideal for any man or any child to grow. But we try our best to bring them up in the best way that we can.
Yeah.
As I am going right now, I'm treating a terminal ailment. And if that's the way God decides that time has come for me too, it is well. If I could, I'd buy extra days, but I know I can't. And the beauty part is, okay, he came to learn about Christ during that last leg, but he was more joyous then than before. And he told us, if you have these other things that you don't get to see, or you think that are not valuable, those things count more than what you're seeing right now.
Yeah.
And it was like, look at me. How much am I spending to other people, doctors and all these guys, trying to sign lawyers' papers so that if you're gone, at least you've secured some few things for the future of your kin. And it's like, he was like, try and build on what you have. If you've grown in a complete family, appreciate that. Teach yourself to ask God to honor that home and allow you to be, even if they're murky things, families go through a lot.
Yeah.
To hold it together. Because it gives you balance even as you age.
Yeah.
You may not be physically wealthy, or how we consider wealth to be, tangible cash, zeros on the accounts.
Yeah.
The cars that we park outside, or as they call them, whips. The clothes on our backs and all that. Like, no. If your basics are covered consistently, then you have it made. You don't struggle to keep up with somebody else.
Yeah.
Or like all these reality things you've seen going around, keeping up with this family, it's a facade.
Yeah.
And for him, throughout the years, he's been craving that. But he came to the place of acceptance that, you know what? We messed up. This is what happened. So fast tracking it, as we put him to rest, it's just reflecting as I looked at the family left behind, even how they were seated at the venue. You could tell those are clear separation. And it got me thinking, if I was the man inside that box, and I had a chance, if God allowed me a chance to, out of body experience, to see what's happening.
Yeah.
How that make me feel? Would I feel achieved? Would it break me even more? Going knowing that, you know what? Ile ni noma.
Yeah.
Na hakuna kitu nimedu. So that's what I mean. The testimonies of us who are left behind. What do we learn? I put myself in that box.
Yeah.
Like one day, when God honors and blesses me with a family, I'll try my best to make sure that the basics are covered. What are these basics that are covered? There's health.
Yeah.
There's wealth. And there's bond. Let me narrow it down. The health, the wealth, and bond is, I have your back. You have my back. Whatever I have, we share.
Yeah.
Whatever you go through, I go through, and I'm not walking away. We do life until we've done life.
Yeah.
I keep joking around. I think I've even told you this before. I'm one of those dads. I want to be so busy in my kid's life that by the time the tiny one gets to become a teenager, there'll be the teens who complain, Dad, you're too much on our space. Because I don't want them to grow and have that daddy issues. They're grieving, daddy didn't. My dad, no. Because I can work on me as I'm alive to be that.
Yeah.
Regardless the pressures, the things that are thrown to us. So when we sit kwa nyuma, and I'm sure just before this you're telling me you had attended a funeral
yesterday,
memorial yesterday, and I'm sure there are things you had in quietness, whether expressed by the grieving person or party, or even just randomly you had somebody whisper something, because there's always sharing after this guy is bonding. You get to hear some things and it makes you reflect. It makes you think, wow, somebody could be going through so much.
Yeah. In fact, maybe I can bring it here and then you continue. There's something I picked yesterday when I was attending. I don't know that guy, but it's someone I know who had lost their relative. And so while I'm there, this is what happens. I remember, because you see, when you are in such a space, there's a lot that you can learn. Only if you're willing to learn. And I remember someone one day asking me, they said, KT, people talk about you, but the only testimony that I can believe about you is 1, your spouse, 2, your children, and 3, your house manager. Because these are the people that you are with most of the time. One thing that is a truth: once we are born, we are bound to die. Unless the Lord comes before. This is the second coming of Christ. And that thing really makes me want to be what you're talking about the 3 things that you've narrowed down. You've talked about wealth, health, and bond. And I'm just seeing how I can be able to make the most of it now, so that when I'm lying there and people are talking and I can be able to experience that out of body, I will say I did something.
Riding on the same, because it's a conversation I've had before. You know, what you said, the 3 people who can actually, the testimony that binds it all. Your wife, your kids, your house managers, and all.
Yeah.
If I may add on to it, for the good number of people working the 8 to 10 hours a day, of your wife, your kids, and your house help, whatever they say tends to match up, if it is true about you.
Yeah.
Whatever these other guys you spend the better part of the day with say about you. This is beyond, we have occasions that somebody passes on and probably they're not, their bond wasn't really well with their spouses.
Yeah.
It still doesn't negate the fact that if this person was good, they were good.
That
regardless, whatever that season they were in.
Yeah.
What we call the milestones and the hurdles we have to pass through in life.
Yeah, so it's like more of not making an event to override everything that you've done.
Yes. It matches up. And I guess that's why in these whispers we celebrate in different ways. Look at our cultures, how we do it. In a typical, probably a majority of our Kenyan tribes and the different cultures we have in, we celebrate these people in very different ways. You go to any funeral, one, you'll never lack people singing. Whether it's a traditional song or anything like that, or the modern versions of them. Before somebody talks, before even a prayer is made, there's always music, whether being played or being sung. To some, there's always a dance being done. True?
Yeah.
To others, like where you come from, food has to, it has to feature.
In fact, there's a tent of meeting. Meeting, I mean MEAT. Meeting.
Yes. Meeting.
You go by, like, let me say clans, or you go by the people that are coming to maybe to condole with you. Indeed. So you take them to the tent, they eat.
And the thing is this, particularly I really enjoy some of those cultures because you go, you see a villager who a majority of you are clueless who they are. But you ask that guy, he'd be like, siku ingine tulipatana kwa barabara. Akanunulia soda. That's the memory they carry because this guy did something probably for them at that point.
Yeah.
And soda is a big thing when it's scarce.
Yeah.
Or you haven't had it in such a while, or you can't even afford it. But as a memory, this person remembers. It's not even the soda, it's that this person did something for me.
Yeah.
It was personal to them.
Yeah.
The music, the mourning. And we laugh because we know of a particular culture that even they hire people to mourn.
In fact, let me just bring this before I forget it. And it's from scripture, I think in Timothy.
Yeah.
They say, if you don't take care of your relatives, you are worse than an unbeliever. And I remember one time our accountant was talking about ushago, and she has sijui to buy sijui unga, she has to buy, and there are small things, not big things. She has to buy sijui sweets, and this is part of taking care.
You just imagine anytime you visit the village, you take your paper bag with that kandovu or the elephant picture or the lion near Carrefour. You've jazzed it, whether it's a big one or the small one.
Yeah.
Upeleke ule auntie ama shosho. Atokangi huko. Shikaini shopping yako. Carrefour.
Shosho ataenda around the village.
Carrefour.
Iyo sasa ndo social media.
The next time you visit, 6 months, a year, whenever you visit, utakuta ile paper bag ndio go to your everything. Church, still new. Baka inaweza fold.
Inabeba Bible.
Inabeba Bible.
Yeah.
And it's not because of anything. It's the action that was actually personalized.
Yeah.
And that's how grieving is. It's personalized. So when everyone seated at the back is just like, hey man, Katie. Manze Katie alinibuy lunch.
Yeah.
Katie aliongea on my behalf, kamlango kakafunguka. Katie ajoi tupita tukiwa job tunaosha floors.
Yeah.
He always says hi. That's the real you. It's not what we read on. I mean, you've carried an eulogy. And typical eulogies will have people's pictures.
Yeah.
The basics that we need to know.
And
they were born.
Yeah.
They did. They went through. And they died.
And sometimes it may be curated in a way that in psychology we say family secrets. You hide the family secrets.
Yes.
And yesterday when I attended this funeral, for me, because now I feel like we're talking about how now it affects us. For me, I was like, this man was born in like 1950. And they say that in 1980, he formed a choir in that church. 1986. And I'm like, KT, what more can you do for the people of God? What more can you do in the sense that you're making people's lives beautiful? Because I'm seeing, when I was there just listening, in fact, the son was saying, for me, I'm not mourning in a way that he's gone and everything. Of course, he's gone. But the son said, I am celebrating his life because of the things that he's left in me. He's made me to become a better man. In fact, another thing the son added, and now the daughter said that our dad used to always talk about increase your social capital.
When we began, I said this, with age comes a lot of knowledge or a lot of stupidity. Right there, brother.
Yeah.
That's a man who had a lot of knowledge and he knew what was right to pass on.
Yeah.
Social capital is really good if it's in the right setup. And I'm just thinking, you've lived a good life. when that guy we're talking about who attends your funeral and says, this guy bought for me soda, says these words, huyu alikuwa mtu wa maana sana. I mean, in our local context, you know that is a big thing when you hear that from now the normal people. Let me call it that for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
Aside from now the immediate family who are deeply in mourning. Huyu ni mtu wa maana sana. What makes you maana or important to them? I'll give you a story of maybe 2 or 3 stories that I can relate because I was there as it happens. One, have you ever attended a funeral that has people who don't want to attend? You end up attending not because you actually knew the person gone, because there's nobody to say goodbye to the person gone, who's left. There's a guy who's where the last place he stayed, out of pity, for lack of better terms. He passed on, no family claim, no family did anything. So they decided, you know what, let's just bury this guy. You put in a request that, like, you know, we can talk to Church ABC. If they're agreeable, if the pastor's okay, we can try and give this guy a decent send-off. And as I sat inside that hall, I could easily count, probably if there were many people, just about 8 or 12 on the higher side.
And scattered. This is not COVID.
This is not COVID. But of the few who came, and the stories would gather in whispers again, is that this guy, even in his neighborhood, he was just a nuisance. Alikuwa jamaa mgumu kuishi naye, just difficult. And I can only but imagine if your neighbors find you that difficult.
Yeah.
So much so, not even a family member shows up. What does that mean?
A lot.
It says a lot. Back to the uni mtu wa maana sana. But now on the flip side, even if it's out of pity, what would make me decide to take up the role of, you know what, let's just try give this guy a send-off?
Yeah.
Chances is that, and these are just my thoughts, chances is that the few guys who came together to give this guy a decent send-off, they had a decent side to him that they could recall. And that's what made them say, you know what, let's do it.
Yeah.
The other way would be leave the body for the government to dispose of it the way they dispose of any other unclaimed John Does or whatever. But no, just a handful of people decided, you know what, ujamaa enyewe out of V, if not for anything else, cheni tutum zike, tumtafutie space Lang'ata or any of the few remaining public burial sites.
Yeah.
Tumwekele chini, tuongee na church, tuongee na pastor, tuone kaa anaweza patiana word.
Yeah.
It's because there's something along the way. Yes, they might have got everything wrong, but along the way, something decent enough, somebody remembered, and they were willing to actually give the guy a send-off.
Yeah.
A different setting. We attend this at a funeral. And this was amazing. This place was packed. Packed. Have you ever seen or heard? And this is not even an old person. I'm talking of a very young person.
Wow.
By then we're actually age mates. She passed on. And it touched me in this sense. And I actually want to share her name because she really left a good mark in everyone who relate to this. This lady was called Dorcas Murerwa. Dorcas shut down a whole medical school, University of Nairobi, Chiromo, shut down to acknowledge her going. She fell ill when we were just somewhere having our youthful days, the hangouts, by church and all that. But in terms, there's no person alive who came across her who will not attest to these words. Dorcas was a friend. Dorcas was a confidant to many. She was solid advice giver. And she kept it to herself what she needed to keep to herself. Some of the rarest qualities you'll never get.
Yeah.
Why have I mentioned the medical school? She was the youngest ever person to make it to the dean's list.
Wow.
How many do you know who made it to the dean's list? Mark you, I think she was either a second or third year medical student.
Yeah.
And she topped
the list.
Dean's list is like when we were in high school, we used to have this black book. Black book was a bad book to find your name in. Because if government would, in the government's terms, you'd actually be most wanted. But now the Dean's list is, you're the best, the cream de la cream, you're the best of the best of the best.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the place was packed. So much, of course, in traffic. There's no movement in, there's no movement out. Even the integrity of the room we were in was almost on a compromise because of the volumes of people. This is in the city. We're talking of a ballpark figure of maybe 3 to 5 or 6,000 people. And these are years back. This is over a decade ago. If I'm not wrong. You think that, most of these funerals that we see today, guys just come for the service and they're gone. Waenda uzike, tuko pamoja, as they always say. Shift that crowd. Went all the way to Meru. Do you know even the villagers were like, what's not happening?
I can imagine.
And even after she was put down, the wreaths, everything were laid and all that. Nobody wanted to leave. It was just about the stories of how she impacted people's lives. It's not about even her achievements. And I think it's good we get it clear and a disclaimer that even as we grieve, if you've noticed, most of the grieving processes are not even what these people achieved. Yes, you'll hear once in a while, oh, this guy had a nice car, like they had a collection of cars, like a recent one you also attended. It was on a light note, they were saying those things. But the impact, the people, the Dorcases of this world, who they opened doors for, who they had, who they empathized with, those things that matter.
And that's why I was saying, it's not what people live with you, but what they live in
you. Dorcas left that with very many people. Did she have her own issues she was facing in her family? Yes, she did. But she never projected it to anyone, at least as far as I know, because I knew her for years. We were with her back in the day. There's something called stompers that we used to do. Imagine I used to dance. Anyway. We were with her in that. In many other different aspects.
Yeah.
And never even once did this young lady ever project the pains she'd go through while she's with you. She'd share it, yes, but not as for you to downplay anything of yours or anything.
Yeah.
But to do life with you in the process of listening and going through whatever it is that you're sharing.
Yeah.
And she'd not allow anyone to interfere if she picked on this person, Aaron, or Martha or whoever wants to just have a moment and do life, experience this.
Yeah.
She'd protect it. And that's an impact that we rarely get. These days, we are so quick. We want to move on to the next thing. But we don't listen beyond the words people are sharing. What are they actually going through?
Yeah.
Beyond the facade, COVID showed us that people are going through things. Guys were grieving like crazy, losing jobs left, right, and center, losing family without seeing family.
Yeah.
You imagine like the first time when now we're reacting to fear of what's not happening. Just see guys in these big suits, PPEs and whatnot, coming with like a body, not allowing you even to go near.
That was trauma by itself.
It's trauma. Guys are living through that right now.
Yeah.
No goodbyes, no stories shared, no...
It's only 6 people or 15 people to attend.
And that was on the... Before it was just...
And maybe you were
family.
Isolated as well.
Yes.
Because maybe you came into contact. And
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It wasn't anyone else. It was just, and when I watch, probably you don't know, because even the body is so wrapped, you're not even sure if it's your person being buried.
Yeah.
Because I believe we had incidences of wrong people being buried. Imagine all that. And how would you go and share it with? That's the story of the legacy of whoever went. Imagine having to share our story. Ati tulienda kucheki kumbe si mtu wetu. That was the grief. That's why we want the memory of what that person instilled in us. With all these grieving processes, takes me to my second point, of the communal, the whispers, the communal impact, the collective grief that we carry, the strength of the community around us. The comfort or inner certainty, and how you and me process the incomplete narratives. I remember my youth pastor back in the day, Tony Kiama, Tony Blackie.
He was also my youth pastor.
When he lost his dad and he was sharing the confusion in, he'd see his dad on that bed. He'd walk out and come back. He's like, so dad, ulisema ulieka ile key wapi? Goes out, comes again, is like, ka title deed kako wapi? Kanini iko wapi? Kanini iko wapi? All those things.
Yeah.
And I can actually stitch that with watching my dad at some point when he lost his father. It was a slow reaction. And if dad, you get to see this, and I know tujaiongea sana, but I observed it. His grieving came way later after we laid this man to rest. For him, it was like, oh my gosh, right now I'm actually an orphan. Yes, there's grandma who's still with us, though it's a step grandma.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of impact it had. He's not neglecting the fact that there is one, but in the process of what happened, because he lost his biological mother way before, it hit him different.
Yeah.
Now with the uncertainty of the narratives or the lost narratives, like that one, dad uliacha wapi key? Dad uliacha wapi title? Dad nilikuwa na hii thought, dad I'm going through this, or mom, or whoever you want to put into that spectrum of identification, how you relate with them. They're no more. You can't share, you can't get feedback.
Yeah.
So how do we go through that? That's when community comes in.
True.
Now the people who whisper, the people who will come all those cold nights, as Kenyans, we have an interesting way of mourning before we bury.
Yeah.
There always has to be guys gathering in your house or somewhere with a cup of tea. People talking stories.
Any funny thing, if you want stories.
Yeah. Attend those memorial days before the burial days.
Funeral planning
planning meetings. And most of them, it's actually not, yes. It's not even planning, it's stories.
Yeah.
Because it's a collective gathering of,
yeah,
those are certainties. Oh, by the way, your dad said this and this. A random guy or an uncle or somebody would say that. You're like, oh, I was actually wondering now how will I even sort this and this. Or in the case of wale wamejipanga kidogo, by the way, your dad left a will.
Yeah.
So like, oh, so this guy actually, I pray everyone has that privilege of getting some of those things. And if you happen to be one to others, usishike waitu, usifiche.
Yeah.
Let's tell people of these things that, because they don't have these answers.
Yeah.
Praying becomes hard. Asking God stories that you wanted to ask a person in flesh who you called a dad, a relative, a friend, whoever they were to you, and not getting those answers.
Yeah.
The community comes in. We'll share stories, probably stitch up some of those loose ends that probably you needed that quick feedback on the what next.
In fact, a friend of mine who lost the father, okay, I don't know, before I get to that, there's a teaching I watched, and statistics were saying that men die 15 years younger, 15 years earlier than women. And that's why maybe the dad is coming fast. So this friend of mine lost the dad. And she was mentioning how, manze jana nilikuwa nimetoa simu naenda kupigia dad. And then she remembers. And the grieving begins. And for me, I was learning from a psychological perspective that you can grieve and you can re-grieve again. And now when the community comes in, it's now in a different environment where the grieving continues, but this is also part of healing. And now as people also share about the whispers that you're talking about, as people share, it starts to make you think that, me as a believer, my dad has gone to a place that now gives me comfort, when now a scripture like, we are not mourning as people who do not have hope. That is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 from verse 13. And this is something that for me, I grappled with for a very long time. When my dad died in 1999, it was a Tuesday. I remember I was coming from school and I had been given the message by a friend. My dad was in hospital. I never visited him. He was suffering from pneumonia. And I never visited him because that time there were a lot of issues that I had with my dad. That's why I never wanted to go visit him. But that was when now it hit me. What I had is no longer there. And for me, I remember when people will come home and people will talk about my dad in a manner that for me, I see my dad was a good person, but for me, I saw him as a bad father. But slowly, with years, because this is 1999, August 10th, and with years, I started getting the comfort. Even though my dad died, I start remembering through the stories of the people from the community. They used to say, my dad paid fees for me. My dad did this for me. My dad introduced me to church. And I remember my dad used to go with me to church before I stopped going. And that was when I started to learn that it's not only what people live with you, but also what people live in you. And it started to give me comfort that in as much as he's not there, my dad left me in the arms of God.
colors of memories.